All right, it looks like most of us have found our seats. Good morning. My name is Rob Winnell. I'm a district court judge for the state of Kansas, presiding in Johnson County with the 10th Judicial District. I'm also the chair of the 2022 Mental Health Summit Planning Committee. I will introduce our committee members to you later in the summit, but on behalf of the committee, it is my pleasure to officially convene the 2022 Mental Health Summit for the statewide Kansas event. Thank you for coming. I would ask at this time that you please stand and join me for the presentation of our colors and the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please join me in thanking our Topeka Fire Department Honor Guard Local Number 83 and Paula Rolfe. I will tell you that Paula Rolfe is a master's degree candidate at Kansas State University studying drama therapy with the hopes of bringing her career to those with behavioral needs in our community. Thank you again to TFD Color Guard Local Number 83 and Paula Rolfe. If our government speakers could please join me on the stage at this time, you may have a seat. It is good to see you. I mean that. It is good to see you here in person. It is good to see you, the approximately 225 people that we have joining us in this room today. It is good to see you, the over 400 people who have registered via Zoom. It is good to see you today. And I am pleased to tell you that we have all 31 judicial districts represented at this summit, either in person or via Zoom. Every judicial district is represented here. And what that means is that, absolutely. And what that means is that, in a way, every Kansan is represented here today. We have from the four corners of the state and everybody in between represented here today. So it is good to see you. Now, if you're wondering who the you is, I will tell you. The you is mental health service providers, county commissioners, legislators, case management workers, social workers, law enforcement, sheriffs, co-responders, parents, family members of those with lived experiences in mental illness, educators, just to name a few. That's who the you are by collective occupation. But who the you are by specific intent for today's purpose are individuals who are willing to come to the table to discuss, evaluate, and address the court and the community's response to the issue of mental health. That is who you are, and it is great to see you today, because when we answer that question, we serve every Kansan. We serve every person, including those who may have historically been viewed as only existing in the periphery and the margin. Every Kansan is represented today. Every Kansan benefits from today. So thank you to the you. When we started this effort, we knew we would only see true, significant, intentional improvement if this was a three-branch effort. We knew that from the beginning, and we sought that. And I will tell you, we've been planning the summit for the last 18 months. And in those 18 months, I have seen it firsthand, all three branches working together in conjunction for a common goal to address the court and community's response to the issue of mental health. I have seen it, and it's been amazing. But no statement or characterization that I can give you of that process can speak louder than having the highest ranking government officials in the state of Kansas here today to open our summit. This summit is designed to be a catalyst, not a conclusion. And I can't think of any better way to spark that catalyst than when these four leaders from the state of Kansas here to speak to you today. So without further delay, it is my privilege and honor to introduce our introductory speakers today. Our first introductory speaker was elected to the Kansas Senate in 2004, serving there until she became our state's 48th governor in 2018. As part of her tireless commitment to the behavioral health community, she oversees the statutorily created Governor's Behavioral Planning Services Council. If you're familiar with the council, you know the work that it does here in Kansas, and it's amazing. But before Governor Kelly assumed her role in leadership here in Kansas, she started on the front lines in the behavioral health world, working as a recreation therapist at Rockland Psychiatric Children's Hospital in New York. While working there as a recreation therapist, she saw firsthand the service and the needs to those children and adolescents. She was part of Rockland's overall full continuum of care that was provided, whether it was services in the family's home or in the cottages that existed on the campus. Governor Kelly has taken that personal knowledge, that provision of behavioral health services to those in need, into her leadership here in Kansas. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to introduce you to your governor, Laura Kelly.
No, the all rise is for the justices, not me. Sit down. So thank you, Judge Wannell. And I want to welcome everybody to this year's Mental Health Summit. Senator Masterson, Speaker Reichman, and Chief Justice Lucart, it really is an honor to share this stage with you all today to talk about ways we can work together to strengthen mental health services statewide. But before I go any further, I can't help but recognize this head table here. just filled with 3 Supreme Court justices, Rosen, oh gosh, I hope I don't forget everybody's name here, Evelyn Wilson, and Standridge, I'm so sorry. And Justice Rosen, is this your grandson? Your intern, okay. Okay, sorry about that. You look a lot like the family. Okay, and your intern. Okay, so I wasn't wrong. I thought you looked a lot like family. All right, so it's good to see all of you. And I want to welcome everybody else attending this year's summit, those of you who are here in person and those of you who are online. You know, the important work you do every day to uphold the law, protect our way of life, and care for Kansans keeps our state running smoothly. Your work has never been more impactful. You know, as you heard, when I was younger, I did witness firsthand the debilitating effects of mental illness. The day after I graduated high school, I went to New York to work at a camp that was serving disadvantaged adolescents. Then after undergraduate, I worked at a minimum security facility for boys in Illinois. And then it was after graduate school that I worked at Rockland Children's Psychiatric Center in New York, where I worked with kids with very severe mental illness. Those experiences really did open my eyes. They taught me that successfully addressing the mental health crisis required a collaborative approach over a long period of time. It is not an overnight fix, and there's no one size that will fit all. Today, I know that a strong mental health continuum of care is necessary to the overall well-being of the people, but also of the state. I'm encouraged by the progress we've made and know we have a lot to be proud of, but there's still so much more work that we need to do. We must continue to expand and improve mental health services available to all Kansans, from childhood to adulthood, from urban to rural. You know, everyone in the audience today is critical to answering this call. Right now, we still have far too many people with mental illness languishing in our criminal justice system. And while we don't have clear statewide data, we do have a clear picture on the national level. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, 37% of the people in state and federal prisons have been diagnosed with mental illness, as have 44% of those in our locally run jails. 1 in 4 people in our jails experience serious psychological stress, and 27% of people jailed 3 times within a year report having moderate or severe mental illness. Kansas really does mirror these statistics. The bottom line is that our criminal justice system isn't equipped to do what a fully functional mental health system is supposed to do. Instead, it places undue burden on our courts and on our law enforcement community. It's equally burdensome on those who have mental illness and who would otherwise benefit from treatment or other diversionary options. It is the compassionate and the humane thing to do to provide them with the help that they need. It's also unfair that our taxpayers are left footing the bill. Not only do they have to pay for the high cost of incarceration, they're also on the hook again when these untreated mentally ill prisoners wind up back on our streets, often worse off than they were when they entered the system. You know, together we can do better. For our part, we've lifted the moratorium on voluntary admissions at Osawatomie State Hospital that has been in place since 2015. We're also working to increase capacity throughout the system at Osawatomie, but through state institutional alternatives and through new regional beds. On top of higher mental health and crisis stabilization funding overall, the budget also increases resources for substance abuse, treatment, and suicide prevention. It includes more funding for competency evaluation and restoration, which is backlogged right now, and would provide a release valve for local jails if we can clear it up. From day one, we've been committed to a comprehensive early childhood education system, which studies show sets kids up for healthy and successful lives and dramatically reduces their chances of winding up in the correctional system. We're also increasing funding for the mental health intervention program in schools by $3 million in fiscal year & making for a total of more than $10.5 million targeted towards that program. And as we're expanding resources for veterans who are 5 times as high as civilians to suffer from major depression and 15 more times likely to suffer from PTSD. Similarly, we have created the Kansas Ag Stress Organization, a mental health resource for Kansas farmers and ranchers to help them deal with their unique mental health issues. Every little bit helps, and it's the right thing to do. For too long, those with mental illness were stigmatized and considered untreatable. The reality is the opposite. The vast majority of those with mental illness are highly treatable and can lead healthy and productive lives with the right resources and programs in place. Until every Kansan has access to quality and timely mental health care, we need to continue to explore what each of us can do to contribute to the development of a comprehensive behavioral health system here in our state. My charge to you is to proactively develop policies and leverage resources to improve our judicial response to the mental health crisis. We can't achieve success without your help. I want to thank you all again for what you're doing by being here, all that you're going to be doing after this summit is over. And I think at this point, I'll turn it back to the judge.
Thank you, Governor Kelly. Our next introductory speaker was elected to the Kansas Senate in 2009 after previously serving in the Kansas House of Representatives. After serving in the Senate for 12 years, he was unanimously elected by his colleagues as the President of the Senate, sworn in January of 2021. During his leadership and his years in the Senate, he has served on the Child Welfare System Task Force, the Legislative Task Force on Dyslexia, the Public Health and Welfare Committee, and the Senate Select Committee on Healthcare Access. Much like Governor Kelly, President Masterson appointed a representative to the Planning Committee to help us today. President Masterson continues to show his support by being here today. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to introduce your Senate President, Ty Masterson.
Please keep your seats. And thank you, Judge, and thank you to all. As he mentioned, I wasn't just on the dyslexic task force. I am dyslexic, so I don't prepare remarks because I'll never be able to perform them in a way that makes any sense to anybody. So, and I also don't feel like I need them to be able to say welcome and thank you. So, welcome first to everybody that's participating, and really more, thank you, because of the broad spectrum of those that are involved from all the branches of government. This is, I think we mentioned it, the Chief Justice and I on the side. I think this is the first time, at least, that I remember that the heads of all the branches of government have joined together on something. And so that shows you the significance, kind of that all hands on deck for the issue. We've also been working to build relationships between the branches of government. And you see the political spectrum as well, right? In all of these leaders coming together on this issue. So that's what's important. And so thank you, because you see this issue, many of you, live and in person, right? In living color, firsthand, first responders, healthcare workers, the judicial system sees it in the courts, and how important it is. So, I mean, my encouragement to you is, just as this is a broad group of people, a broad group of leaders, don't limit your conversation to just what you think government can do or the treatment. This problem is getting worse in our society. Don't limit yourselves on what you discuss. I mean, it feels to me like we are making the problem worse on many fronts in our society, in this postmodern society where we reject faith a lot of times. We reject the healthiest versions of family. We leave scores of fatherless children. We go to social media and build all this comparison and push people towards self-satisfaction versus a societal interest. So I just encourage, don't limit yourselves in this conversation. It's bigger than this. Money is helpful, and we're here to be part of that, and from a policy perspective, but it's not the answer. It's not the end-all answer, but do what you can. And thank you all for participating. And like a good politician, I'll yield my time.
Thank you, Senate President Masterson. Our next introductory speaker was first elected to the Kansas House of Representatives in 2012 and currently serves in the highest leadership role in that chamber of our legislative branch. As part of his longstanding service to the state of Kansas, Speaker Reichman served on the board for Kids TLC in Olathe, Kansas. And if you're unfamiliar with Kids TLC, TLC transforms the lives of children and families with behavioral health needs, with trauma, and with autism. And of note, Kids TLC is celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and Speaker Reichman has been a part of that history and tradition with that organization. Under his leadership, we formed the Special Committee on Mental Health Modernization and Reform, chaired by Representative Brenda Landwehr, who is also part of our planning committee. Speaker Reichman participated in our preview event back in September, showing his support, the support of allowing Representative Landwehr to be on our committee, and his support for being here today to speak to you. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to you your Speaker of the House of Representatives, Ron Reichman.
Thank you, Judge. And again, thank you for everyone for having us today. Thank you so much for your involvement. It is an honor and privilege to be up here with our governor, our Senate President, our Chief Justice. I guess the first question is, do we have a designated survivor? You know, this issue is obviously very important, or you wouldn't have this type of a turnout. And we all are looking for the right answers. About 5 years ago, I was invited down to Newton, Kansas, and had a discussion from a lot of the stakeholders, some of the schools, some of the providers. So how do we improve on this issue? And it was apparent to me that everyone's heart was in the right place. Everyone wanted to do the right thing. But we were competing for funding, for employees, sometimes for clients. It's like, how many times does the right hand not talk to the left? Well, here we are today. We have every branch of government. We have every single judicial district represented. We have law enforcement. Not only do we have the right and left hand together, we have both feet here today. So our challenge is great. Opportunity is even larger. You know, I'm reminded of a story out in northwest part of the United States where a power company struggled with ice on the lines. And when the ice built up on the lines in the northwest part of the nation, they would collapse based on the weight. And folks would get together for years to try to figure out, how do we keep ice off the lines? How do we keep our region supplied with power? Individually, folks would come up with ideas, and they just weren't getting it done. They all wanted the right thing. They all were striving for the right thing. It wasn't until they all decided to get in one room to figure it out. And there was a simple rule going to that meeting. No idea is silly. We're going to take every idea and work it out. One of the first ideas that came up is that, well, again, no idea is off the wall, no idea is silly. What if we train bears to climb the power poles? And as they climbed the poles, the vibrations would shake the lines and the ice would fall. Of course, I heard a little laughter, and I'm sure there's laughter in that room. But the moderator said, hey, remember rule number 1, no idea is too silly. Let's explore this. How can we get the bear to climb the pole? Well, let's put a pot of honey in the top of the pole. Of course, the bear would then be trained to climb the pole. All bears like honey. Okay, how in the world do we get the pot of honey on top of the poles? Says, well, I suppose we can have a helicopter fly above the poles and set the pot of honey on the pole. And of course, they could also refill them. And somebody said, well, if we do that, wouldn't the vibration from the blades of the helicopter knock the pots of honey off the poles? When the idea was sprung, why not take helicopters, fly them next to the power lines, and have the vibration from the wind off the propellers knock the ice off the lines? Started with one idea. They do that today, and there's power has been restored, and a lot of the ice is kept off the power lines. I don't think our answers to this solution are as easy as ice on power lines and helicopters, but I know the answers are in this room and online. So I encourage you guys to continue to listen to each other, work with us. We're a team, and together we can find a solution for this crisis that faces our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our final introductory speaker this morning has received numerous prestigious Distinguished Service Awards from the Kansas Bar Association, the Topeka Bar Association, Washburn University, to name many others. But she's also served in various roles in the community right here in Topeka, serving previously on the board of directors for Sheltered Living Incorporated right here in Shawnee County, addressing those with needs of developmental disabilities and their role in the community. She began her time on the district court bench here in Shawnee County until she was appointed to the Kansas Supreme Court in 2002. Chief Justice Lucart renewed her office, but this time as Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court in 2019. Justice Lucart led the delegation from Kansas to the regional summit addressing the court and community response to the issue of mental illness. Shortly after being sworn in as the new Chief Justice, Justice Lucart was interviewed by the Ichabod, the Washburn alumni magazine. And in that interview, Justice Lucart said this: "I want to do everything I can for citizens of Kansas to make access to justice more than just a statement we throw out." She went on in that interview to encourage all leaders to investigate their own role in the judicial system and ask the question, are there better solutions? And in her tenure as Chief Justice, we have seen that charge in effect throughout our state, with the formation and continuation of veteran treatment courts, drug courts, behavioral health courts, and an examination of the applicability of specialty courts across our state. A potential better solution to make sure that the phrase access to justice for all isn't something that we just throw out. And with that, it is my privilege and honor to introduce our final introductory speaker, ladies and gentlemen, your Chief Justice, Marla Lucart.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Good morning, everyone. Yay! The judges know when we say good morning, we mean good morning. So everybody now, good morning, everyone. Good morning. It really is my very, very deep honor to be here today on this stage with the other leaders of our government. I want to tell you just a little bit more, add a little meat to the bones of what Judge Winnell has talked about in terms of the journey that got us to today over the last 18 months or so, and to also give you a hint of what might lie ahead. So as Judge Winnell said, the journey to today really began in October of 2019, when Judge Winnell, who has chaired this Summit Planning Committee, Judge Tim McCarthy, who's up here from Johnson County, Judge Patty Mackey Dick, who's also here somewhere, I'm not where she ended up being, clear towards the back, from Reno County, the Kansas Education Administrator and I went to the Midwest Regional Summit that was part of the national initiative to improve court and community response to mental illness in the justice system. That initiative is a collaboration of the National Center for State Courts, the Conference of State Court Administrators, and the conference to which I belong, the Conference of Chief Justices, as well as the State Justice Institute. Our Kansas team left that summit with two goals. First, we knew we needed to learn a lot more about what was going on in Kansas. We knew there were things, but we also knew that in many instances, the judges and the justice system were not a part of some of those efforts. We learned about the governor having a behavioral health planning committee, about the legislature's mental health and modernization and reform committee, and also the work of the Criminal Justice Reform Commission. And I know many of you in this room are on one or more of those. But as I said, it was obvious to us that we needed to become more involved in some way with that. And fortunately, one of the benefits of starting the communication about the summit has been that doors to those committees and participation in those efforts has been open to judges and members of the judicial system, so that we can have conversations around tables like this about what needs to be done and how to go about doing it. But we also became convinced that we needed to open doors at community levels. And so we began to work on our second goal, which was to plan this summit and to use this summit, as Justice Winnell has referred to, as the catalyst for things to change in our communities. We knew, we've all heard the statistics, that our jails and detention centers across the country are the largest providers of mental health services. And we know that those people almost always end up in front of a judge and end up in the judicial system. So what do we do about that, and how do we break that cycle? I have told a couple of people in the last day about my story, perhaps. I was sworn in as a district court judge on Good Friday 30 years ago. I laugh a lot about what the symbolism of being sworn in on Good Friday to be a judge might be, but we won't go there today. And the following week, I began my duties of actually hearing cases. Now, I've heard hundreds of thousands of cases since then, and I can't tell you about every case I heard, but that first day kind of just is seared in your memory. And one of the first people who walked in front of me was a man I'll refer to as E.T., and those of you from Shawnee County are probably already, I'm seeing the responses, know who I'm talking about. E.T., I found quickly, was a regular person who came through the jail and into the court system. He was not a violent threat to anyone, at least at that stage of his life, but he had mental health issues that caused him to frequently act out in ways that brought him into the justice system. We had no real way of dealing with E.T. or others like him. We put him in jail, we got him back on his medications, he became stabilized, he'd go back into the community, a few weeks, a few months, he'd be back. We'd start that process over and over and over. This really hit me when a few weeks ago, my court was doing a motion docket. And there was a handwritten pleading in front of us that I immediately recognized because E.T. has very distinctive handwriting. And sure enough, at some point, his situation had escalated. He is now in prison. And I look back at that and I think, we could have done better. We needed to do better. Not only for E.T., but for thousands of other Kansans like him. And today, I think we have the power, and we've learned so much, not only in therapy and medications, but also in the justice system, about how to break that cycle. We have judges who are sitting here that are doing specialty courts that help us bring those people into therapy and bring them the resources they need in their lives to help them break that cycle that ET suffered from. So today, we have a unique opportunity because really, until today, we have really worked in our little silos in our communities, with some exception. Some of you have broken out of that. But today we are bringing together the foremost innovators from across the country, experts and thought leaders in mental health and behavioral health programs. And we've done that with one purpose in mind, and that is to effect meaningful change by discovering and implementing solutions in your communities and in our justice and our health systems. We have been blessed to have the leadership of Judge Winnell in these efforts. As those of you know him, he brings to this an energy that is just incredible. He has devoted so much time to this effort. I have told him last evening that I think that when we came back from our Midwest Summit, I was pretty confident that as a few weeks later, when I took over as Chief Justice, I would make having a summit like today one of my objectives. And I think we would have pulled off a pretty good summit without Judge Winnell. But with Judge Winnell as our leader, I think we are bringing together an amazing conference that is going to be so powerful. I think, like me, you probably can feel the energy in the room. And beyond this, we have our virtual community that is joining us. So there are nearly 700 of us who today and tomorrow will be focused on these issues. Judge Winnell will talk more about the leadership team that brought this all together, but I do want to pause here to say thank you to all of the members of our planning committee who have worked diligently and given many hours to bringing this together. As Judge Winnell indicated, one of the first things we did was go to the leaders of the other branch and ask for them to join in this effort. And each of them appointed members to our planning committee. We have Representative Landwehr, Senator Petty. Also from the executive branch, we have had Andy Brown, the Commissioner of the Behavioral Health Services, Dean Campfire, who is the Mental Health and Housing Program Director for the Department of Corrections, and Dr. April Terry, who's an assistant professor at Fort Hays State in the Criminal Justice Department. We then reached out to the 31 chief judges, and you have seen the results. We have 31 judicial districts represented today. And they, in turn, reached out to their local governments, their community members, and have brought together a broad spectrum of disciplines and community leadership. We recognized, as I mentioned, that from day one, we needed community by community involvement. What might work in my community might not work in yours. And what might work in your community might not work 30 miles down the road. So we want to give you the opportunity in this next day and a half to talk as community members and to begin the conversation of how you break through whatever silos exist in your communities, whatever barriers there are, whatever opportunities you have, how you can take advantage of them. We want to share, we want to advance new and promising ideas, opportunities, and we want to begin collaboration. After all, we, that is me, you, each one of us in this room, each one of us on our virtual community, and each one of us in our judicial system, we can do much more. And we can achieve better results for people like ET and others. We can build partnerships focused to improve each Kansas community's response to the mental and behavioral health issues that are in those communities. And in doing so, we will both improve the criminal justice system and the behavioral health and mental health system. So let's begin today by embracing a spirit of communication, collaboration, cooperation, and coordination. Again, I express my gratitude to those on the stage with me today, to Judge Winnell, to the entire Summit Planning Committee, to Petty Tobias from the National Center of State Courts, who has provided us great leadership, to all of you. We appreciate your interest and we look forward to working with you in an innovative and cooperative spirit as we discuss effective practices already in existence. We share thoughts and ideas of improving our community responses, and as we collaborate in creating paths for assisting members of our communities who face mental health and behavioral health issues. Thank you for attending and for your tireless efforts to improve the lives of those living with mental health and behavioral health issues. Let this summit propel substantial change. Change that makes justice accessible to all Kansans, even those with a severe mental illness or behavioral health issue. And make the change to make Kansas, its communities, its people better, stronger, and healthier. Thank you for being a part of that effort. Judge Winnell?
Thank you, Chief.